How's it going? This is a tutorial on how to animate UI objects in code.org AppLab. I'll be showing both how to make the service and how to use the service that I uploaded as a library, just in case your project doesn't let you upload libraries. So first, I'm gonna go over the functions. I'm gonna open a new project and explain how to import it. So in order to import a library, you just click this gear icon, manage libraries, import library from ID. I will put the ID in the description and on the screen right now. So once you copied it, just paste it in here, press add. It should say up here. First, I'll go over what is tweening. Tweening stands for in-betweening, which basically generates frames in between a start point and an end point. Using a loop to go frame by frame, changing a property can give an element an animated look. So that's what this service does. I try to make it as simple as possible to use. If you have any suggestions, bug reports, whatever, just leave it in the comments. So first, I'm gonna show you how to make a tween. So these are all the functions that the service has. I may add more, I may change the names of them. You can see the parameters and documentation on how to use them. So the function to create a tween is TweenService.create. Now the parameters you pass in here are item, prop, fin dim, direction, and time. Direction and time are not required to pass in. They're just optional for additional features. So item is going to be the element ID. So I'm gonna insert just a button here, button 1. So in here I would put button 1. Property is whatever property you want to tween. It has to be a number value that you can change. So I don't think you can do text and stuff like that. You can do the width of the text. You can do probably the font size. You cannot do the actual text because that just doesn't really make sense. So it doesn't matter if this is capital or non-capital. So you can just put in width like this. Doesn't matter. Fin dim is the final dimension. It's the goal of what it's going to be. So for this, I'll put, I don't know, 10. So if I were to run this, see, it shrinks down. So these are the only 3 parameters required. You can also make it grow in size. But then the last 2 parameters, direction and time. Direction makes final dimension not actually the final dimension, but instead a number that's going to be added to the current property. So that may sound confusing, it's not. A simple way to use this is if I put in is equal to add, out is equal to subtract. So doing it like this, you see it'll add 10 to what it currently is. Otherwise, if I didn't have the direction on there, it would just set its width to 10. So that can be useful specifically for enlarging and decreasing the size of elements when you hover over them. That's what I mainly use it for. It's better for like smaller choices. If you don't want to put anything there and you want to have a time, just put null. For time, this is how long the tween will last. So this one is kind of buggy. It doesn't fully work well. I will probably end up fixing it eventually. Now the next function I'm going to show you is TweenService.stopTween. What this is going to do is this is going to stop a specific tween based on the element ID. So if I put in button 1, this will stop any tween being applied to button 1. You may notice how it immediately jumps forward. This is because the way this tween function works is in the end it will set the property to the final dimension in order to catch any cases where the tween would mess up and not go to the full extent that it's supposed to. So that's what stop tween does. It'll work better once I fix the time parameter on TweenService.create. The next function is sort of similar. It's going to be TweenService.stopAllTweens. But this is basically the same thing, except it stops every tween that's playing. Then again, if I created a tween without stopping it, it'll grow like this. But when you stop it, nothing happens. I don't know why nothing happens. I don't know why it's different. I made this function last minute. Whatever. Anyways, moving on. TweenService.lerp. This one you will probably not use. I decided to put this as a usable function just in case you did mess with linear interpolation without your program. All the information I'm about to say is completely irrelevant. Let's say you have a line like this, and you have 2 points, 3, 9, 4, 12, and you want to find a point 75% in between these 2 points. The way you do that is with linear interpolation with the formula. So the way you would get this is by using the formula start plus goal minus start times progress. And for this, I'm just going to use a plus b minus a times c. So if we plug in the numbers, let's say you wanted to start at 3 plus 4 minus 3 times 0.75, you get 3.75, which would be the x value that is 75% in between 3 and 4. So that's basically what lerp does. It returns that number. So it's not really important. You don't really need to use it ever. This function is TweenService.getTweenProp. What this does is it gets certain variables from the TweenService. So it does return the values, so you do have to print it out if you want to see it. So the items here, FPS, playing, IDs, properties, values. FPS is the amount of times it'll change the property from the start of the tween to the end of the tween. So if the FPS is 20, when you make a tween on this button, it's going to change 20 times before it gets to its goal. Higher FPS makes it more unstable, but also makes it look smoother. I believe I was able to get like 120 and it worked fine. And then if you put 90,000, it obviously breaks. Playing returns the array with all of the loop IDs. The way the TweenService.create works is it creates a timed loop that changes the property every certain amount of time, and you can stop that loop remotely using the seed of the loop, which would be stored in this array. IDs is the element IDs of the tweens. So if I tweened button 1, in this it would say button 1. Properties is the properties that we're getting tweened. So if I was tweening the width of this, width would be in this array. Values are the final dimension. So if I wanted to make the height 120, 120 would be in this array. So the way you would get that is by passing in a couple keywords. First, there's FPS, which would obviously return the frame rate. Else, you have playing. You also have IDs, then you have properties, and then you have values. So whenever you pass in these keywords, you'll get the corresponding value of this object. But if you just want to get all of them, or you don't want to type this repetitive statement over and over again, you can just pass in nothing, which will return the object that stores all. So that can be pretty useful sometimes, I guess. Next, there's changeTweenFPS. changeTweenFPS changes the frame rate that I mentioned earlier. So you can put in pretty much any number. Say, I'm gonna put 120. So the default frame rate is 20 frames per second. I don't think that's that bad. I'm gonna change it to 120 before I run the second tween, so you can sort of see the difference. So here you can see it's a little bit smoother, but it's also a lot faster. I'll probably work on that. Something's off, I'll try to fix it. But also, if you want to get the current frame rate, you can also just call the function with no parameters, and it will return the current frame rate. Also, it'll automatically print out credit, so you don't have to like credit it in the notes. That's great. You know, the library is cool and all, but what if you can't import a library? What if you have to make the code in the project? Well, I'll show you how to actually make the service. So first, I'm gonna just go ahead and make the lerp function. We just put start, goal, progress. I'm gonna return start minus goal, or no, start plus goal minus start times progress. Then I'm just going to declare some of the variables. Let's set this to whatever default FPS you want it to be. I usually set it to 15 or 20, just because we're just going to create a ton of empty lists. I'm going to make the create service. I'm going to do a function TweenCreate. Actually, I'm going to just make it create. I'll show you why. Yeah. Item, property, bind, direction, time. Make a tween counter variable that's equal to 0. Then set the property to property.toLowercase, so that way you can use either all caps, all lowercase, half caps, all half lowercase, doesn't matter. And then we're going to get the property value. Item, prop. If direction. So if they have something in direction and it's not passed in as nothing and it's not null, then direction is equal to direction.toLowercase, again, just to make sure. Again, just to make sure that whatever they put in works. And if the direction is equal to in, and final dimension is going to be equal to prop value plus bind. Else if direction is equal to out, bind is equal to prop value minus bind. So now, if time is not defined, then we're going to set the default time to 375 milliseconds. This is like 0.375 seconds or something like that. It works. It's whatever. Then we're gonna set. And then we're actually gonna make the tween loop. I set this to tween interval timed loop math.round. Set this to time over TweenFPS, and set the callback function. Then you're gonna want to set property to item, and then for the property we're gonna pass in property, and then math.round lerp prop value final dimension tween counter over TweenFPS. This is going to get the current progress towards the goal of the tween, and then you're just going to add tween counter plus equals 1. I believe you can do tween counter plus plus, but it's whatever, same thing. If tween counter is greater than or equal to TweenFPS, as in it's run more than 15 times, or it's changed over 15 times, then it's going to set the property and it's going to set the property to whatever the goal was. So that way, no matter what, it will end up that way. Then you're going to stop the time loop. That's it for the main part of TweenService.create function. But now you're just going to add it to the lists. So then tween playing push tween interval. Push adds the element to the end of the array. The next one I had to do append item because it was, for some reason it kept saying I couldn't share the library because it had bad language. even though it's just called like tween element ID or something like that. Just gonna add in IDs item. Tween properties dot push property. Tween values dot push final dimension. Then it's going to return the tween interval. I don't think you have to, but might as well. I don't know, maybe if you don't do it, it breaks or something. Alright, then next I'm going to do StopAllTweens. This one's pretty simple, just only a couple of lines. Just make a basic for loop that is going to loop through all of the tweens that are playing. Then he's going to stop it. I actually believe you can just do stop timed loop. Just in case you have other timed loops going on, I would use this function. I will show you an example of the tween service in use in an app that I created for school. Now we're going to do stop tween for when you want to stop a specific tween. Declare the function, make another for loop. This time set it to IDs.length and then add a conditional if IDs I is equal to tween ID so if it's equal to tween ID, then you're going to set property IDs I tween properties I tween values I. What this is going to do is it's going to skip it to wherever it's supposed to be. That is actually that makes sense. Okay, so this is actually an optional line if you don't want it. So this is why earlier in the tutorial it instantly jumped and it didn't stop in the middle of the tween. I forgot to put this line. If you don't want that, delete the line, whatever. Next, you're going to remove item IDs I. Next, you're going to do stop timed loop tween's playing I. Now you're going to do remove item tween's playing I. Remove item tween values I. One more. Remove item tween properties I. Then we're going to break the loop. What this does is it just makes the loop no longer continue, and that'll be the end of this function. Next is the changeTweenFPS. You actually don't need this, because if you're declaring it, because if you're making your own service, you can just do TweenFPS is equal to 1, whatever. So that one's not necessary. You also do not need getTweenProp, but I'll just show you how to make it anyways. Passing property. This one's pretty easy. Let's make an object. Make the keys. Playing. IDs. Properties. Values, 3 values. Sick. Alright, that should be it for making the object. Then just check if prop is equal to anything. So if they pass in property, and you're going to return object prop 2 lowercase. Else, we're just going to return the whole object. That should be it for getTweenProperty. And then just to make this exactly how just to make the functions easier to use, I'm gonna just put this all on the service by creating an object and create equal to this function. Just drag it in, comma. Oh. Make sure you have complete word. StopAllTweens. Drag this one in. StopTween. That one in. GetTweenProperty. Ooh. Drag this in. Let's drag it in. Future me here, I did realize I forgot to do something. I forgot to include this lerp function in there. So you're going to want to cut that or copy it out. Create a lerp. Paste it in. Like that. Also, because this function is used in the create, you're going to want to go down here and change this to TweenService.lerp. And boom, you have a TweenService. So now you can do TweenService.create. Let's just do button 1. X. 10. In. Boom. That's how you make the service on your own. Now I'm going to show you how I used this service in a project. I'll also link what I'm about to show you in the description. So I use this for the AP Computer Science Principles Hackathon project. So you can see the way I used the directions is with these buttons. When you hover over them, they increase in size. When you click on them, and then there's the menu, which I used between these objects. So you can, traverse the menu. Cool. I also made a settings, we can do the exact same thing. And then made a button that'll tween these objects. Yeah. So that's just one way I use this TweenService. If you guys do use this TweenService, drop some links in the comments of your projects. I do want to see how you guys use it, how you guys implement it, whatever. If you have any questions, bug reports, whatever, leave them in the comments. I'll try to get to them. I got free time. I can do whatever.